Hey guys, welcome back to the Kate Show. Today I am interviewing Jennifer Kok, who is from Next Wave Business Coaching, and she has been a really great resource when it comes to all things niching down and pricing. As a creative entrepreneur, you likely struggle with your pricing because it's subjective. Like, how can you put a price on a well-organized home or a beautifully designed space? Well, you have to when it's your business. So if you find yourself wrestling with these questions of how much should you charge, what should your profit margin be, you're going to get those questions answered today. Because, while things like interior design or organizing or staging might feel like second nature to you, you know that other people struggle deeply to accomplish any of those things, and therefore they do have deep intrinsic value. These people, your clients, feel that your services are highly valuable, and you have to translate that into your pricing model. But what if you've been undercharging for years and you finally realized that it's time to raise your rates? What should your new rate be and why? And what profit margin should you aim to have? Well, like I said, Jennifer answers these questions today, and she does it in such a refreshingly simple way that I may have to go back and listen to her words of advice again. It was that good. So today, like I said, I have Jennifer Kok. She is shedding light on pricing, and I want to tell you just a little bit about her. So veteran business coach Jennifer Kok started her first business 2 days before giving birth to her second child. She turned it around in the middle of a recession, and then she sold the company for a profit after growing it to a national brand. She makes her experience an asset for owners looking for the next wave in their business journey, hence her business name, Next Wave Business Coaching. She is the founder of Next Wave Business Coaching, where she's an advocate for small businesses. She helps small business owners who are in growth mode with strategy, clarity, and mindset to double-digit their growth and build a sustainable business. In other words, guys, she totally speaks our language. Jennifer owned her own service-based business for over 20 years, developed a national brand, and knows what it takes to run a fast-paced, successful small business while also raising a family. She now shares her expertise with multiple entrepreneurs across the country. Guys, I'm pretty excited for you to hear this interview, so let's get right into it. Meet Jennifer. This episode of The Kate Show is brought to you by HoneyBook. I love using HoneyBook for my business because it helps create a streamlined workflow when people decide they want to work with me. Because, there's one thing to do the right marketing to get the client. There's quite another to impress them all the way through the end of the project. And with HoneyBook, my clients are able to review and sign their proposal, make their payment, and then be told what to do next, all in one fell swoop. I've set up automations that remind them when they need to send me certain assets so that their website project can go off without a hitch. And if you've ever worked with us, you know that HoneyBook kept you on track, it kept us on track, and it was really easy to use. If you're interested in using HoneyBook for your business, go to honeybook.com and use the code SOCIALITE at checkout for 50% off your first year. This episode of The Kate Show is brought to you by the Foundation website. Guys, if you need a new website for your business, but you can't afford a fully custom site, or you just don't have that much time to spare, you should check out the semi-custom website design service from the Socialite Agency for home pros who need more than just a DIY website template. How many times have you purchased a website template only to never use it or get stuck because you don't know how to complete it? You don't know how to connect all the things. And well, doesn't that end up being a waste of money? It does. That's why the Foundation website exists. If you want a professional to set up your website, handle your on-site SEO, optimize your images, and write your copy, and you want to maintain full control over that website moving forward, this website is for you. You'll be able to see what's included and what's not included by heading over to katethesocialite.com, and under the services page, click on semi-custom website design. Every great build begins with a solid foundation, and we've made it easy. You'll be able to learn exactly how the process works, why we have a 10 business day turnaround, and why we can keep the fees so darn affordable with no ongoing fees to us whatsoever. The cool thing is, and the thing that a lot of our clients appreciate, is that when you get our website, whether it's fully custom or semi-custom like this one, we are available to help make updates to your site. We only charge you when you actually need an update made. which means that months, years might go by. You don't have to pay us a dime. But when you're ready for help, we're there to help you. Head over to katethesocialite.com and look under the services tab to get the website your business deserves. Hey guys, I'm here with Jennifer, and we are about to hear all about her origin story as well as get some of her advice on how to raise prices without hurting our businesses and without causing ourselves a lot of stress in the meantime. So, Jennifer, welcome to the Kate Show.
Thanks, Kate. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad that we could make it work. You came highly rated and highly well reviewed by a close friend of mine, my CPA, Jackie Coder. So shout out to her. And I am glad that we connected because you have a story to tell. And you also have a podcast. So I want to give a shout out to that as well, where you tell other people's entrepreneurial stories, which I think is amazing. So I would love to start with your story because everyone already heard me read your bio, in which you stated that you started a business right about the same time you were having a baby. So tell me, what on earth was so important that you did that while being super duper pregnant? Because so many of us, including myself, know what it feels like to be about to give birth, and it's not really a great feeling. But you launched a business during that time. So tell me.
Well, I don't think it was because I did it because it was super duper important. I think I did it out of being just completely naive and clueless on what it was going to take to start a business. So I was working for Kraft Foods in sales and marketing, loved my corporate job. But back then, in order for me to keep promoting and working up the corporate ladder, if you will, we had to keep relocating. And my husband and I, we had moved 3 times, had our first baby, and got to a point where she was about 3 years old at the time, and we didn't want to keep moving. It wasn't fair to his career. We didn't want to do that to our children. So we decided to move back from Chicago to Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is where I am today, to be closer to family. And I always had this desire to be an entrepreneur. I think it was just in me from a little girl. And we decided we were going to do that. Well, I found a business. It was actually a franchise that I decided to buy into called Cookies by Design. It was really a gifting company. They were these cookies that were on sticks and they were in a bouquet and they would be delivered, corporate gifts and things like that. The funny part about my story too is I didn't even really like to bake. It wasn't like I was at home baking and I wanted to own a bakery. I saw the marketing, I saw the niche in the business, and I thought, oh, we can do this. So I leave my corporate job. We sign on the dotted line to open up a location in Grand Rapids, Michigan with Cookies by Design. We move back to Michigan and I find out I'm pregnant with my second daughter. Well, I was completely clueless on what it takes to open up a brick and mortar bakery, all the health code, the plumbing that had to go into it, all the things. And so by the time we opened our doors, she arrived 2 days later. She arrived 21 days early. She probably thought to herself, I've got to get out of this crazy woman. Who is this woman that's carrying me? Thankfully, everybody was healthy. We survived. But my husband literally picked me up from the hospital with cookie bouquets in the back of the car that we had to go and deliver on our way home. And the next morning, I had to get up and go into work because I had 2 new employees that were starting, brought my baby with me, and I never had a maternity leave. My maternity leave was in the back of a cookie store.
Oh my goodness. Talk about baptism by fire. Like, wow. Okay. So let's stop and break this down for a second here. So brand new baby, brand new business, you are fully postpartum. How did you not fall apart? Or did you fall apart? Because that's just relatable.
Absolutely, I fell apart.
Yeah.
There at the time, I think you're just in it. And it was like, okay, I don't have a choice. I have a loan. We now have a lease that we signed on. We're in it. We got to make this work. And it was probably about maybe 6 weeks into it. I'm exhausted. My body hasn't probably healed properly. I'm feeling all the guilt of, I'm not home with my newborn. I'm not home with my 3-year-old. This is, insanity. And I do remember curling up in a ball and just crying in my bathroom because it was the only place I could find that was private without ever, other people coming in. And I really just, I thought, what the heck did I do? But then I had to go back to my why. I left a really good job because I wanted freedom. I wanted flexibility. I wanted to be there for my children. I did not want to, have to remove them all the time. And, there's a lot of women out there that are working wonderful corporate jobs, and I think that's amazing, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to my why, and I had to remember the reason I was doing this. And that's honestly what kept me going. And of course, the support of my family and friends.
Yeah, that why is so powerful. And I think that's also what gets people through things like the recession of 2008 or even 2020. If you believe in what you do, then it really doesn't matter what happens. You're going to keep pushing through it. And of course, this perfectly illustrates the concept that running a business is probably one of the hardest things we'll ever do. But we do it because we have that passion. And some people have told me they wanted to start a business because they wanted to do something easier, to which I like tried not to giggle because I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah, easier is probably not the right word, different. And yes, it is
Mhm.
the hardest journey I've ever been on. I've been on this journey for 25 years now, but it's also the most rewarding. I was able to make it a part-time business once, for me, once I got the business to a place of a little bit more sustainability. I was able to have that freedom and flexibility. It just took
Mhm.
a few years.
So, yeah, that's just it. You have to stick with it. And there's so many businesses that fail within the first 2 years. So the fact that you were able to make it as long as you did, it is incredible, especially considering a rough start. So as you went through that business and then you had other businesses, kind of bringing it to today's topic of pricing and having to raise prices at given points in a business, whether it's service based or product based. How did you navigate that? Because it can be quite emotional, and it can be difficult to think, okay, if I raise prices, am I going to lose clients or customers, or what's going to happen? Am I going to get pushback? So how did you go through that? What did it look like?
Well, I was in that business for over 20 years and I weathered a recession. I built a brand new product line called Cupcake by Design. It was a very high end luxury product, very similar to interior designers and home stagers and home professionals. It wasn't a need, it wasn't a necessity. And so when
Mm-hmm.
you start to weather all those different outside circumstances that are outside of our control, it can be very challenging. And there is a lot of fear wrapped into, if I raise my prices, will people come back? Will I lose a good client? Will I be competitive? But you have to do it strategically. If you don't take a price increase for 5 years and all of a sudden you jack it up 5 times, you probably are going to have some pushback. But if you make it
Mm-hmm.
part of your annual process to review your prices, review your costs, review labor, all of those factors that are coming into your service or your product, and analyze it yearly, you can take smart price increases. And I will tell you, I made this a practice. It was a January practice. I don't know why it was January, probably because it just, that's the time of year where we always feel we're going to do all those kind of things. And it was very strategic how we did it every year. But every year I did sweat it out. Every year I did have that moment of, oh, what are people going to think? And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, in the 20 years I owned that business, I can't even recall one conversation that was so uncomfortable about my price increases.
Mm-hmm. Which is so interesting because nobody actually thinks about our businesses as much as we do.
Exactly.
Nobody's that critical. And especially with cookies. I mean, who doesn't love cookies? So, what else did you do? So you owned that business for 20 years, but you've done other things as well on your journey to becoming a business coach. So what did that look like?
What that looked like was, when you own a business for 20 years, people naturally come to you anyway. I had a heart for mentoring other businesses. I also did launch a children's consignment sale business. I had that for 5 years. I just always was kind of finding, I guess, the next trend or what was exciting, and, launched a business around that. And then sold all of those in the fall of 18. So in the fall of 2018, I sold my cookie and cupcake business after I owned it for 20 years, mentored my manager, which there was nothing that felt better than mentoring somebody who could take on your baby, because it's really a baby that you raise to adulthood, That just felt so good for both parties. And so then I ended up kind of stepping back and trying to decide what I wanted to do next. And then the pandemic happened. And I was watching what was unfolding with our local businesses, with our service-based businesses. And I thought, you know what, I have a skill set that can help these people. If nothing else, give them hope, because I had really had weathered the 08, 09 recession. So that's when I decided to get into business coaching. I'm really more a business consultant because I'm really teaching my strategies, proven methods to help you double digit growth. And I'm really focused on profit and revenue because I believe we are in business to make money. And as women, we have such hearts. We're natural nurturers, we're natural givers, we're natural fixers, and we have a hard time charging, especially in the service-based industry. But I believe
Yes.
you give money to good people, they're going to go on to do great things. It's okay to charge. It's okay to be profitable. It's okay to make a good living because you can go on and then give wherever you want to give.
Yes, yes, I agree with that 100% because a lot of us, and I used to feel this way too. Well, if I charge quote unquote too much, am I just being greedy? Well, I'm sure there comes a point where greed would come into play, but some of it is like you said, knowing your numbers, figuring out what your profit margin should be, which I have a question for you on that as well because that's a slippery one. But then also realizing that the money that you bring in, it's a tool like anything else, and you can go use it for good. You can go use, and it also, like, feeding your own family is considered good too. Like it is okay to do that. So when interior designers and professional organizers and stagers are like, all right, yeah, pricing a service-based business is difficult because it's very subjective. It's valuable, yes, and there's often physical labor involved, but like, how do they figure out what their profit margin should be? Is there some sort of formula that they use or what?
So there's always benchmarks in every industry of what your profit margins should be based on your revenue. So for instance, we want to start by pricing our products and focusing on the gross profit margin, which means you take what you sell it for, subtract what it costs you to provide that service or product, and that's what's left is your gross profit margin. And then after that is all the expenses to run the business, the utilities, the marketing, your cell phone, all those details and expenses that it takes to run a business. So each industry, you can find those benchmarks. And, a good question would be to ask your CPA, what is a good benchmark for my gross profit margin? I like to see businesses 40% as the bare minimum, especially interior designers, 40 to 50% gross profit margin.
Okay.
But what's happening is we fail to account our own time.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And it's back to, I started this business because I want to help. I have a passion for it. This doesn't feel like work. Trust me, I've heard all those things. And I'm like, that's great, but we still should get paid for it. So I always encourage you to take yourself out of the equation. What would you charge if you had to hire somebody to do the work you're doing? So not only should you be factoring in the cost of the supplies needed, the materials, whatever the project is, but you should be factoring in the cost it takes to do the research before the client, with the client, after the client. There's a lot of, we know, moving parts. And if you had to pay somebody to do that, make sure you're factoring that in, and then you should be charging so that you're hitting at least 40% profit margin.
That really simplified everything. Wow. Okay. I've got to make that a quote and just publish that out there for people to see and tag you in it because that is what we need in this industry. Not just the esoteric ideas, but okay, here is how you do it. If you are replacing yourself, so I'm going to repeat this for the people in the back. If you're replacing yourself, how much does it cost to get a new you? So basically what you're saying is that we should look at how much it would cost to replace ourselves in the business, which is nice because that really takes the emotion out of it and allows us to just focus on the numbers. So how would we go about figuring that out? Is it as simple as literally Googling how much does it cost to hire a such and such and then kind of incorporate that number into our calculations?
Yes. I mean, typically there's kind of an industry standard, what you have to pay someone to get a qualified employee to take your spot. They might not be as high level as you are. So we just want to use a standard rate. If someone was to come in and take our position in billing out, in quoting and bidding a project, what would we have to pay them to manage all that? So I would, usually, the going rate right now is a minimum $20 an hour, but you really have to do some homework depending on where you live, depending on your industry and kind of what you're seeing out there to hire good help.
Yes, yes. Well, that really does help. And on that same topic of making the calculations, determining what it's worth, when you sold your business after running it for 20 some years, how did you determine the valuation?
Valuating a business is really tricky because there's so much emotion wrapped into it. Of course, it's your baby, just like your home. Like if I'm going to tell you my home is worth a heck of a lot more than my neighbor thinks it's worth, same with your business. And I would highly, highly recommend that you do not tackle that alone, because by doing it yourself, you could leave a lot of money on the table. So when it comes to getting ready to sell your business, I have a couple things that I've learned from doing the process. And what I always share is, first of all, think about your exit way before you even want to exit. Think about your exit when you still love your business every day and couldn't imagine doing anything different. Because you don't want to get into a position where you're tired, you're burned out, maybe financially things aren't going great and you're just done, because then that's a fire sale and you're really going to end up not getting the amount of money that you could if you had a plan in place. Just because you have a plan in place doesn't mean you have to execute it. And then this is where a CPA comes in to really help you do evaluation on your business. You can hire people to do evaluation. I will tell you, they're going to charge you $5,000 or more. So it's usually not worth it. But between my banker, my CPA, myself, looking at, our financials, we were able to come up with a number that we felt not only was really good for me, but also made sense for the buyer. Because, you've got to find someone who's willing to buy it and has to be able to pay it off in a certain amount of time. So I would say try not to tackle that. Bring in the outside experts, bring in the financial experts, because you're going to get more money for your business than if you tried to do that yourself.
Now, from the point when you determined the value and you had a buyer, how long was that whole process, that whole transition process of, okay, now you're the new owner, paperwork's been signed, I'm stepping away. Like, how long did that take?
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you, buckle up. Just because you have a potential buyer, that is a roller coaster. One day she's approved, next day she's not. It was an up and down. We had an attorney involved, we had a banker involved, we had all the people involved. So it takes a while from the moment that you find a buyer, because there's a lot of due diligence that has to happen. So that process probably took about a year.
Wow.
Just for her to get approved, to her to get the down payment, for us to get everything, buttoned up and with the lawyers. It has been done quicker, especially if you use a business broker, but us doing it, it took about a year. And then part of the contract was I stuck around for a year as a consultant, as a mentor. Nice. But what was great about that is we had so much time. Probably from the moment I approached her and said, "Are you interested in buying my business? Because I know you have a passion for this." It was probably 3 years till it was done deal. So we had a lot of time to kind of train, show her the other side of the business, because because you have a really good employee or manager doesn't mean they're going to be a good business owner. There's other things they have to know. So we had a lot of time to do that. And then I was kind of on speed dial for a while, and it just kind of slowly, she didn't need me as much anymore.
Yeah. The business grew up and walked away.
Yes, it's kind of like your adult child. They keep coming back, and then eventually they don't call as much, and that's okay. That means they're figuring it out on their own.
Yeah. Oh, and that must have been such an interesting experience emotionally to see that happen. But also, like, how cool that you built something from nothing up to the point where now it is a viable source of income for, X amount more people.
It really is. There's a lot of reward in paying it forward, I guess, if you will.
Do you find yourself turning on the news and feeling hopeless? Woke agendas, open borders, inflation due to out of control spending, and the list goes on. There is something you can do about it. Buy from companies that believe what you and I believe. We need to stick together now more than ever. And there has been one company willing to stand with you since 2012. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer the very best nationwide 4G and 5G coverage on all networks. In fact, they use the same towers as the major carriers. Patriot Mobile has service plans to fit any budget, and their 100% US-based customer support team provides exceptional customer support. More importantly, Patriot Mobile shares your values and supports organizations fighting for religious freedom, your constitutional rights, the sanctity of life, and our veteran and first responder heroes. Switch to Patriot Mobile now and get free activation with the code KATE. Go to patriotmobile.com/Kate and use the promo code KATE to get free activation. Guys, on a personal note, I have been using Patriot Mobile for about a year and a half, and it has been amazing. Not only was I able to keep my phone number, and have amazing coverage, I was also able to get on a plan that just made more financial sense for me and my family. And if you go to patriotmobile.com/Kate, you're going to be able to do things like check your coverage to make sure that you will have the right amount of coverage for your location, choose a plan that works for you, get a new phone if you need one, bring your own device, keep your phone number, and even get cellular internet. It's kind of amazing. There are personal plans, or if you have a bigger business, then you can also get business plans with them too and get your employees, all your team members on Patriot Mobile. Guys, go to patriotmobile.com/Kate and use the code KATE for free activation.
And really, this fits in with the picture that we're trying to paint here of raising your prices. Because if a business owner is running her business and technically it might look successful, but she's not charging enough, when it comes time to value her business to sell it, because selling is always preferable to just like shuttering it and being done when you want to retire or move on. If it's not making the type of profit it should because your prices were never set up correctly, this is a long-term illness in the business that needs to be corrected as soon as possible. So if we've got a service provider in the home industry listening who's like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm not charging enough, and I know we've got a handful of people listening who are like that, what is the first thing they do? Because I don't want them to be paralyzed, like, oh crap, I've made a huge mistake. So what's step one?
You know what? Step one is take a pause and reevaluate what you're charging down to the nitty gritty. Take a project and evaluate it in detail, including your time. And if you're not sure of your time, start tracking your time. I know we talked about that earlier, and it's interesting because I'll say that to every one of my clients, and every single one comes back if they track their time for a couple of weeks, and they're blown away by where they're spending their time, first of all. And second of all, you're spending more time with that client than you realize. Yeah. So, let's not beat ourselves up. We've all done it. We all started a business, and especially when you're in the early stages, you're going to work with anybody and everybody because you just want business. And that's fine. And you're probably lowballing yourself because you just want business. We all do it. That's okay. But it's okay to say, you know what? I don't want to keep doing this, because what happens is you're going to start to grow weary. You're going to start to burn out. And yes, you might have a passion for helping others, but at the end of the day, it feels good to bring home a paycheck. And so I always say too, try to bring home a paycheck once a month, an owner draw once a month, even if it's just $500, because it makes you feel good. It gives you that validation that I am actually building something.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the first couple of years of business, it might just be $500 a month. That's literally how much I paid myself when I was like 2 years into business and wanting to give up, because like, I work so much and I'm not getting anything. But that goes back to build it right. It will grow. The consistency does pay off. And when you're working with an interior designer, because I know that you definitely work with a few of them, and they need to raise their prices, how do they go about doing that? Do they just start bidding projects out at a higher rate? Or if they are in the middle of, like, they've got repeat clients that keep coming back for new project after new project, do those people stay at the old price? How do you tell them, hey, it's gone up? These are questions that they ask me, and I'm not qualified to answer. So I defer to you.
Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of the numbers tell the story of your business. And so the first step is we've got to see what kind of gross profit margin you're at. If you're sitting at 40%, and you're still not making enough money, then we've got a different issue. That issue is you're spending a lot of money on maybe software or marketing or, different elements, utilities, rent, lease, whatever it is. So that's the first step. We've got to see what your gross profit margin is. If it's really lean and you're not making enough, then we have to figure out why that's happening. And is it a vendor issue? Is it you're not charging enough for your time? And so you have to kind of take all of this into consideration. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to charge 10% more starting tomorrow. We really want to look at what's going on. And then we slowly start to incorporate price increases maybe we start with new customers and then we incorporate price increases with current customers. And the other thing that I will tell you, one of the best things you can do to charge more is to position yourself as an expert. Be known in your industry for something. Whether it is, I am an interior designer that helps moms with toddlers, or I'm an interior designer that specializes in kitchen remodels. Because when you become known for something, you become the expert. When you become the expert, people start to refer business to you. So not only do you save a lot of time getting clients, but then you can really start to hone in on your costs and hone in on what you can charge.
Yes. And I personally attest to that, getting it really focused on what the niche should be, or as my East Coasters say, the niche. That does everything in making the business branding better. The brand message is clearer. The marketing actually becomes a lot easier. And yes, you can charge more, you can become more profitable, but a lot of people are terrified of niching down. And I know this is something that you talk about on your podcast as well. So with your experience and with all the people you've spoken to, why are people so scared? I mean, obviously the easy answer is they think they're not going to get clients. But is there more to that story? What lies are they telling themselves that make them say, I'm not going to be a specialist, I'm going to be a generalist? Some of the lies that I've heard are, well, nobody around me is doing it this way, so that probably means it doesn't work. Or I will end up being too expensive if I become very, very niche focused, and therefore all my competitors will get the clients and not me. Do you have anything to add to that, those list of lies?
I would totally agree with your list of lies. And like you said, there's this huge fear that the smaller the group I talk to, the less business. It feels very counterintuitive, right? The other fear is imposter syndrome. Because if I say I am an expert in kitchen design, there's pressure that comes with that. There's this, well, who am I to be an expert in that? And so we stop ourselves from putting our flag in that and saying, this is who I am and this is who I want to help. And, we have to remember, just because you want to focus or brand yourself as kitchen doesn't mean you can't help with bathrooms or bedrooms or other rooms. And 99% of the time, you are going to help clients with those things too. But in this crazy digital world that we live in, which, you know this, we are bombarded with messages. And if we're going to stand out, we have to stand out somewhere. And you cannot stand out as a generalist. People are not going to remember you.
No, you're not. Exactly. It is about becoming memorable. And yeah, I agree with you. Imposter syndrome is huge, but I also think that we can flip that around and use it as a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, they say you got to say your morning mantras. I don't really do that. But the idea is the same of say you're going to fail and you're going to fail. Say you're a specialist and you might just rise to the occasion and become a specialist. You might surprise yourself. That's kind of what I did in my business. I felt like I was faking it till I made it. But in the early stages, I was like, well, I really hate marketing. There has to be a better way to do this. And then I figured out a way that worked for me. And then I was like, well, maybe I could do this for other people. And I got to set myself up as a professional. So now I'm a marketing professional. And that felt gross, but I did it anyway. And eventually I was the marketing professional, but I had to put some pressure on myself in order to do that. And I think a lot of us are scared of putting that pressure and holding ourselves to a
Sure. And, we're evolving. Our businesses are evolving, right? And I think there's also this, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do next. I'm supposed to do all these things. I listen to this podcast, that podcast. And that's why sometimes we have to give ourselves grace and look backwards at how far you've come. And I bet if you look
Yeah.
backwards and look at your clients and kind of analyze who they are, their style, their personalities, what they came to you for, you're going to start to see a common thread. We just
Yeah.
naturally all have something that we are gifted in, our zone of genius, you hear it called, or we just tend to naturally attract a certain type of person. And so you're going to start to see it. It's probably already there. You're just not looking for it.
Yes. Oh, I agree. When I was trying to figure out what my niche was, I looked at like, okay, what other clients I really enjoy? Like what sort of industries? And I was like, well, insurance is out because that's really boring. Dental offices, no, ew, major ick factor. And then I realized, okay, all the ones I enjoy working with are, interior designers, remodelers, design build firms. And so I agree. That's a great way to look at it. Now, some of my clients are like, I really do work with such a huge variety of people and I like all of it. Then I ask them, okay, but is there a certain type of project you always find yourself doing? Because you do not have to niche down to a certain type of person or client, but you can niche down to a certain type of project. Kind of like you said with
Mm-hmm.
kitchen and bath. So you could specialize in families, whole home interior design or organizing, whatever that is, or you could specialize in a certain room of the home or in exteriors. How have your clients handled that? Have they gone any of
Yes,
those
because
routes?
that is one of the key things I take my clients through because I find that it makes them more profitable and it also makes them easier to find clients. So I have a 3-step that we look at. We look at the ideal person, like what we said. We look at the industry or
Mm-hmm.
project. You could say project or industry, like commercial. And then the third thing we look at is, do you want to be a thought leader in something? Do you
Mm,
have a unique opinion about something? Do you have, kind of an expertise that you could also position yourself in? So this could be, do I
yeah.
want to be known for sustainability? That would be something that you're very passionate about. It's a thought leadership. And so, there's that third
Mm-hmm.
element too that can help you kind of talk about your business, talk about your brand, and stand out a little differently to attract the people that you want to work with.
That is a really interesting thought. And I like the term thought leadership because it also means their marketing is not going to be all cookie cutter. And they're not all going to have to write blog posts about how to style a bookcase because we really don't need any more content like that, honestly. But with thought leadership, how do you guide your clients through that aspect of it? Because I would imagine that imposter syndrome pops up yet again. Like, who am I to be a thought leader?
Well, it's
Whoa.
it's true, but once again, we look backwards. We look backwards and let the numbers tell
Mm-hmm.
the story. We do an analysis of our current customers, how they found us, why they like working with us, why we like working with them.
Mm-hmm.
And we also just kind of also look at their methodology. Is there a system that you have, a way that you take your clients through it? There's a reason you do what you
Mm-hmm.
do. And I love
Yeah.
telling entrepreneurs this because there's a lot of fear about saturated market. There's, interior designers are a dime a dozen, but there's only
Mm-hmm.
one you. You have your own unique perspective. You have your own history, your own, the way you grew up, your thoughts. And so people need you because there's other people out there that want to work with somebody like you.
Yes, I mean there's more than enough business to go around. And even I say that even now when we have a slight recession going on, I mean slight is another subjective term. For some people it's a pretty significant recession. And we hope that it'll get better after November, December, but there's still a lot of people who need what these interior designers and organizers and stagers are offering. And there are plenty of people who've had bad experiences with professionals just because it wasn't a good
Mm-hmm.
personality fit. Something as simple as that. So I'm really glad that you take your clients through the thought leadership portion of it because I honestly do not see a lot of coaches doing that. Or if they do, they're not coming right out and saying like this is what we're doing because that is a very much CEO big picture
Well,
strategy.
and each business is different, so not all my clients are going to position themselves in their thought leadership, but some are. Like, for instance, I have a dog bakery and she does all the
Oh,
baked goods for
cool.
dogs. And we were trying to figure out how to position her. We didn't want to choose a certain breed. We didn't, obviously dogs is her industry, if you will. So she's a thought leader on how dogs play. she put her flag in that because she's in a very cold climate. So there's lots of months where dogs are stuck inside, owners are stuck inside. So she became known as an expert on how to play with your dog, how, things that you can do. And so it can be as simple as that. Just looking at your industry, your climate, your market, your clientele. And so we just kind of keep peeling away the layers. And that's why bringing in an outsider can help, because sitting here trying to think about it yourself is very overwhelming. But when you have somebody kind of to bounce that ideas off of, we keep peeling away at the layers. Something that's going to bubble to the top, and then we try it out for 90 days. Nothing has to be permanent. So all this fear around choosing a niche or trying to figure out what you want to talk about, you don't have to do it forever. Do it long enough to test it out, but it will change, it'll evolve, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I like to be reminded, and I like to remind my clients, nothing is actually set in stone. You can change it. And that does reduce some of the stress around it. So trying things for 90 days, is that kind of like your standard for if we're going to do something,
I kind of like that time frame. I think mentally, as business owners, we kind of chunk things down into quarters. That's just a natural fit. And it gives us enough time to have conversations with people in those different groups or segments. And it gives us enough time to test something out. Sometimes we might have to go a little longer, but I don't want us to be shiny object syndrome where we're doing something for 30 days. Oh, that didn't work, pull. Because there's so many factors, seasonality. Yeah. We're heading into summer. There's lots of factors that can affect your business. So we want to give it enough time. So 90 days is long enough, but not too long where I lose my clients who are going to get a little frustrated or antsy or bored if they're not seeing the results right away.
Yeah, yeah. Now, if someone listening is like, okay, I need her to be that third party objective person in my business, what does that look like? What different ways do you work with clients? Do you do one-to-one or group or both?
I work solely one-to-one. It's very customized.
Oh, nice.
Because I dig into your numbers. I'm going to help you know your numbers, not to the point where you're got to be scared of them. I want you to be comfortable with them. I want to make decisions with, using them. I'm going to help you with that. So I'm customized. We work on knowing your numbers. We work on this. How can we position you in your marketplace? What's your visibility strategy? What's your pricing and profitability? And so we work together for 6 months. And most of my clients like to carry on because I always say I'm your second brain. I'm there to help you make those decisions. When you're having that moment of imposter syndrome or mindset, you can speed dial me and I'm there to help you get through that. And I just absolutely love what I do because I love seeing the results. But more than the results, I love seeing the confidence. And back to pricing. When you feel confident in your pricing and your profit margin is good, that really raises your confidence. And that comes across when you're presenting your bid to your client.
Oh, absolutely. It comes through in marketing too. It's really easy to see when someone has started building a business they don't like. If they're right through their marketing, because it will be very lackluster, very disjointed. But when someone has true confidence, they know that they're delivering a valuable service and they feel good about it because they know their prices and their profit margins are set in such a way they will actually be compensated for it in a way that is healthy and not find out at the end of that design project they only made $6 an hour. Like then you get the full-fledged designer at your service.
It is beautiful. And then just think of the experience you're going to be providing for that customer. And then they're going to go on and tell people. Because when you're high ticket, referrals is so key. And in order to get those referrals, we have to provide that experience. And that all starts with making sure your foundation is really strong. And then, people like you can come in and help market them even better because they've done the work before they get to you.
Yes. I always tell people that, they tend to think that marketing is the most important thing in business. And as a marketing person, I'm here to say it is not the most important thing, because if you don't have your numbers set up correctly, if you don't know your numbers, you're not going to be able to confidently invest in or afford any good long-term marketing strategy. You're just going to end up doing things for 30 days at a time, wondering why they don't work, and spend needless thousands of dollars on all these different things. And that's exhausting, and that drains a person's confidence. So I like that you pointed out, especially in the high ticket industry, referrals are so important. And you actually have a really cool freebie around referrals.
I
Can you
do.
tell us
And a
about
lot of
that?
it stems from what we've talked about. And it's kind of the 3 steps to getting referrals. It is knowing kind of who you want to talk to and really niching yourself, figuring out what you want to be known for, because then that comes down to networking. We can spend so much time going to coffees, going to every women's group in town, and it can be exhausting because the people that we really want to talk to are not there. And I call it,
Yeah.
does your business pass the face test? Which means when you tell me what you do, if I mentally can't pull somebody out of my mental Rolodex for you, then you are too broad. We need to niche that down a little bit because we want to be so specific when we're at these events, not only to choose the events we go to choose the people we have coffee with, but then also to share with people what we do so that somebody pops into their mind a face.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. The face test. Okay. All right. So everyone needs to start asking their friends, hey, do I
Right.
pass your face
I mean,
test?
an example is a realtor. If everybody knows a realtor, so you go to something and they say, oh, I sell real estate. Okay, that's nice. Thank you. But if I met you and you were a realtor and you said, oh, I help first time home buyers find their first home. That's a niche.
Yeah.
And immediately I've got like 3 people because I have daughters in that age range. So a face came to mind. She might not be at the moment wanting a home, but at least a face came to mind. So that's what we have to work on in order to become referable. And so my guide is 3 steps to help you kind of start thinking about your business to get you going in that direction.
So how can people get this guide?
So if you go to
valuable.
my website, nextwavebusinesscoaching.com, there's a pop-up there. I can also send you the link for that. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I am mostly on LinkedIn, Jennifer Owens Kok. Send me a message that you heard me on Kate's podcast, and I will send that over to you.
Awesome. And there will be in the episode description on Spotify, on YouTube, on all major podcast players, there will be a link to that freebie. So anyone who is listening can grab it. I highly recommend it. And Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for what you do. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening, and be sure to come back next week for more marketing and business advice. Until then, keep your marketing simple, your message clear, and I will talk to you soon.